Welcome to Latina Literati. The channel for those who enjoy wonderful books, great trips, and interesting ideas. So welcome, and today we're going to take you along to San Jose. You may know that song, Do You Know the Way to San Jose? Dionne Warwick, classic. I won't mention the decade. But as always, we want to begin with a historical context. Obviously, the entire valley of Santa Clara, the entire area of San Jose, is originally and continues to be Ohlone land. The indigenous groups that lived in the area were of the Ohlone groups. They are invaded first from the south. The Spanish arrive and establish what they called pueblos. And so a pueblo de San Jose de Guadalupe is established in 1777. It's the first pueblo not connected to a military post or a mission. The mission of Santa Clara that is established close by the same year is completely separate. And so they have their own governing group. And so the pueblo of San Jose is established by Joaquin Moraga. You may know him because there's a city called Moraga. That's the beginnings of the first invasion. It's quite interesting because the indigenous people, of course, are forced to work in the different establishments of the Spanish as they are working, for example, painting decorations on the churches. The Spanish notice, they recognize the red dust being used as cinnabar. And so they quickly find out where the mines are and they start mining for cinnabar. But soon they also discover mercury. And so the largest mercury mines in North America are the Almaden quicksilver mines. So you got to follow the precious metals and follow the resources when you're looking at history, because it's probably dictating what happens next, which is the invasion from the east. And so in about 1842, the invaders from the east take the pueblo of San Jose. That's just about the time, you remember the term 49ers? So that's just about the time that gold is being discovered and mercury is needed to separate gold from other metals. And so those mines are very, very important and very, very precious to the invaders. That was definitely one of the impetuses to saying, oh, we immediately want to be a state, even though the majority of people living in the land, both indigenous and Californianos, who were those who had settled in the ranchos in California, were never asked, obviously. I also think it's of interest, of historical note, the last person hung in California was in San Jose. In the 1830s and 40s, as the invasion from the east occurs, many Californianos are stripped of their titles and their lands. It's basically invasion and takeover of their lands, just like it had occurred for the indigenous, the Ohlone people. And one of these is Tiburcio Vasquez. He was an attorney, a very educated, very literate man. He spoke both Spanish and English perfectly. He was well loved, and he is the basis of the legend of Zorro. So when Zorro protects the Californianos against the invaders and protects children from enslavement or protects different groups, those are based on the legends of Tiburcio Vasquez. And so he was the last man hung in San Jose in the 40s, in the 1840s, and does away with the last kind of uprising of the Californianos against the invaders from the east. And so his legend continues. So for the last more or less 200 years, the Valle of Santa Clara, in which San Jose is, located has provided fruits and vegetables for the whole area. It was a very plentiful area. The soil was very rich, and so lots of fruits and vegetables came out of the area for not just the state, but the whole western area of the United States. In the 1940s, the things shift, and IBM sets up its West Coast headquarters in San Jose. And so slowly over the next 50 years, basically the orchards are gobbled up into urban sprawl. And it's at the end of the 90s for the first time that the county of San Jose surpasses the county of San Francisco in the number of residents. And so San Jose continues to be a city that is growing very fast, not just because of the Silicon Valley companies that have established there, but there's a lot of other companies that have feed into the different computer companies and the different social media companies that have established throughout Northern California. Don't believe that BS that people are leaving California. Lots of people live in California and lots of people move to other states, but this is still the leader in national initiatives, everything from green policies to reproductive rights to LGBTQ rights. This continues to be the place to be, to watch where national policy will go in the future. Even if 1 million people leave to other states, that's good. They may educate and influence other people in those states. We're happy because there's plenty of people, over 40 million people living in California. And all I ask is 1% of you to become subscribers. I'm kidding. Actually, I'm not, but. So we're in San Jose, we're spending the day by the pool, but I wanted to give you at least 3 places that you have to visit if you find yourself in San Jose. So when you think, what can I do in San Jose? Well, of course, central to San Jose in the last 50 years is the tech industry. And so there's a tech interactive museum with a fascinating planetarium to go to and lots of exhibits and lots of things to really engage your curiosity and different experiments. So you're going to love it, and your family's going to love it. Any young people in the family are going to love it, and so it's really interesting. It's well worth going. You should make reservations, get tickets ahead of time. You can't just show up, as most things are now. It's housed actually in a beautiful building by Mexican architect Ricardo Legorreta. And so that's always interesting of note. Again, very strong influences. This is Alta California, remember, and there's Baja California. And for hundreds of years, they were a single place. And so that's important to always keep in your mind as you're looking at places and the names. And you think, oh, why are all the streets or all the cities in Spanish? Well, the Constitution of California was actually written in Spanish in Monterrey, but I digress. I should do a whole video about that. The second place to visit is the Rosicrucian Egyptian Museum with over 4,000 pieces from different Egyptian kingdoms. It's the largest collection in all of North America, and it also has a beautiful apothecary garden, and it has also a planetarium for you to visit. So really interesting. I would say that it's almost worth doing one day and one another day, because I think it's too much to try and do all in a day. And of course, after either one of those, you're going to be hungry. So I always recommend the Bijan Bakery. Amazing. I think that's second or third generation of the family who established this bakery. Really, really amazing baked goods, very high quality ingredients, and really luscious to the eye and delicious to the palate. The Bijan Bakery on South Market Street. You won't be sorry. So now my favorite part of the video, the book reviews. So you may ask, what are you reading by the pool in San Jose and other places? Well, I'm reading a book called The American First Daughter by Stephanie Blake and Laura Kamoy. I hope I pronounced that right. It's the story of Martha Jefferson Randolph. And so she's the eldest daughter of Thomas Jefferson. his wife dies when Martha is just 15, and so she kind of steps into the role of his helpmate and companion, even at 15, traveling to Paris with him, being at different functions and at the White House and at many places. So she really grows up quickly. So it's an interesting story, and also the role of women around some of the historical figures that founded the United States. Also interesting, she does know of her father keeping another 15-year-old as a slave and basically raping her, having children by Sally Hemings. And so what that means for her, again, this is historical fiction, but it's still interesting that historically the children of Thomas Jefferson knew of the children by Sally Heming. The second book is called The Henna Artist, and it's a trilogy by Alka Joshi. It's called the Jaipur trilogy, and Jaipur is a pink city in the Rajasthan part of India. It's just beautiful. It's spectacular, lots of palaces. One of the most interesting observatories I've ever seen, an observatory from, I don't know, 1500, almost 2000 years ago. Absolutely perfect in its exactitude in terms of looking at the stars and constellations. But again, I digress. Let me get back to the book. So in The Henna Artist, you have this amazing woman, very bright, a natural healer, and so she keeps secrets and makes her way in the world as a henna artist, because in societies where women are really pigeonholed into different castes and different families and things, how does she make her way in the world? And so it's a wonderful book, and just luscious details. And of course, India is a perfect place for that because of the colors and the scents and the wonderful tastes of India. So I really enjoy these books. So I'm actually on the second of this. The Henna Artist is the first. I'm waiting for the third. So when the third comes out, then I'll talk about the next two. And the third book that I recommend that I'm reading by the pool this summer is The Last Dress in Paris. And this is a book by Judy Beer. Fascinating book. So Lucille is a young woman who adores her grandmother, and her grandmother says, "Hey, I left a Christian Dior dress in Paris. Will you go pick it up for me?" So she hops on the train and goes to Paris and finds out that it's not one dress, it's lots of dresses, and there's a mystery. This Christian Dior dress that Lucille has to go and find in Paris was made in the 50s, post-war. So lots of intrigue. You have the Cold War backdrop. It's an interesting book because it has both the historical and also the couture angle. In other words, how are these dresses made, and what was the whole process, and what did women do when they wore these dresses, and how were they kept, and all this. So it's really fascinating. Fashion is the art that we wear. So it's really interesting, and it's a complete reflection of society at the time that it's being worn. So it's always interesting to see what these books uncover and what they share. So I highly recommend that book as well. So if you like 1950s France, you'll enjoy the book a lot. But I'll link them always in the description box. Again, your library is the best place, or your local bookstore is the best place to get your books. But I always link really good places online that leverage your purchases to help literacy in other communities. So thank you so much for coming to the end of the video. As always, subscribe, like, comment. I would love to hear from you what you're reading this summer. What are you doing by the pool or not? Mountain, wherever you are. And as always, we wish you mucho cariño, mucho salud, y mucho amor. Gracias.